Hi, Lynette.
Hi there, Steve. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Awesome.
You have a busy weekend?
Yes, we did. Had a busy weekend and a really good 4th of July. So,
Oh, wasn't the fourth fun? Man, it was so nice to have all the regular activities. Well, not all, but most.
yep, no complaints on my side.
Okay. Hi there, Deanne.
How you doing?
I'm good. How was your fourth?
On one hand, wonderful. On the other hand, there's something blooming that I'm not getting along with, right?
Oh, well, there's a lot of stuff blooming, so that'd be hard to pinpoint.
Down, yeah. It's something's making my head explode. So,
Oh,
oh
dear.
well.
Lynette,
Yeah,
just want to let you know that Paul's not going to be here tonight.
okay. It's usually pretty tough for him to make it to anything earlier than 6 o'clock.
Yeah. I don't think he's making it to the regular meeting either, but
Oh, okay. All right.
we'll see.
And Rob, Kevin, good, good.
Sorry. Hi.
Hi,
Trying to get organized here. Was a
as are we all.
if it's okay, I would actually like to rejoin from my laptop. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I was making sure it was gonna my Zoom was
Like that. Nope.
Okay.
You're
I'm
priceless,
showing-
Rob. Sorry.
I'm going through all the settings and everything like that, and I can't figure out why my screen is so blurry, and it's because there's a Post-it note over the camera.
Oh, well, there you go. That'll do it. It's like having your finger over the lens of the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is 5:01 p.m. on Tuesday, the 13th of July, 2021. And we are having a work session, a joint work session with the Georgetown Board of Selectmen and the Georgetown Promotions Commission. And this is to discuss possibilities of change to our ordinances regarding food trucks. So let's kick this off. And I don't need to take roll, is that correct? Okay, just making sure. And I hope you all had a chance to look at the packet that Kent and Jennifer put together about our ordinances that are in place, the list of questions that we might use for discussion, and an article on zoning practices. Who would like to go first? And how do we want to tackle this? I mean, I presume the Promotions Commission has discussed it more than once. So why don't we hear from Promotions Commission first?
Rose.
She froze. Uh-oh.
Is that a little bit better?
Yes.
Okay, great. I took my video off because my Wi-Fi, my internet connection is showing as unstable.
All right.
So I apologize, Lynette. I heard promotions commission first, but I missed the in between.
Well,
can-
I'm assuming that you guys have discussed it at more than just one meeting. So I just wanted to hear what the promotions commission and how much feedback, I guess, you've had from the other restaurants that aren't represented here.
Sure. From the promotions commission standpoint, we've discussed food trucks, not necessarily as a like a long-term fix or anything along those lines. We've more discussed the, special events and the types of things that would happen that you would want to have a food truck come on up into town and what that looks like. We did have a recent discussion at our promotions meeting, and I don't think we have honestly 100% consensus. And there's a couple members of the commission on tonight, and I think that they should be able to say what they would like to say, because I think that's important. I think the goal for the promotions commission is that we find a cohesive and sensible ordinance that recognizes the fact that we are a tourist destination. The people who come here are coming in from all different walks of life, and we need to be able to feed them. And right now that is a challenge. But we also don't want to take out our brick and mortar businesses either. So I think that we have to kind of find a nice common ground ordinance that we're not going to have to redo in the next couple of years, because this ordinance has been revisited repeatedly, and give it some, real thoughtfulness that will help us have to, the exceptions will become much more the exception, and the ordinance will flow in a way that supports our tourism and marketing, but also supports our brick and mortar. But I think that it would behoove the other members of the commission, which I see Paul and Steve and Kevin, to get a few minutes on the floor. And then I don't know, I see Craig is also a panelist. And while I know he's not on promotions, he is a interested party. So would that work for you, Lynette, if the other promotions members got to speak?
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to turn it over to Steve first then.
Why me first, Amanda?
Because I picked you.
Okay, fair enough. I think, so I did read through the materials ahead of time, and yes, this has been discussed, probably over the course of a couple of years, I think, with promotions. My perspective is multi-layered. So first of all, as a member of the business community, I don't think it's a good thing to have tourists come and not be able to get fed. And that is a problem. It's a problem in a lot of places now, especially considering the fact that a lot of places are having a hard time hiring people, can't stay open 7 days a week because of staffing issues. So the whole problem really is exacerbated. The perspective I have also, though, is as a property owner, owning 2 buildings on Rose Street, making investments in both of the buildings to hopefully blend in and tie in with the character of the town, and what attracts tourists to my business is the historic downtown Georgetown Victorian downtown area with the beautiful mountains surrounding it. So at the same time, there's a need to feed mouths. We don't want to create a carnival atmosphere with food trucks that completely take away from the ambiance. I like the fact that I hate the fact that I have a dirt lot across from the brewery, because when a dust storm comes, it gets very dusty inside. I love the fact that I don't have an asphalt parking lot across from the brewery, and it makes it very quaint, very rural, very rustic. So I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the reason why people visit us. I think they visit us now because they want to be downtown. They want what we have to offer. And when we open our building next door, which we're making significant investments in to make it look like it's been there for 120 plus years, we could have did something very different. We could have just slapped up, some things and started serving food, but we're taking a very, very, very long-term view and a long-term approach for Georgetown. our break even is very far out there. So we don't want to lose the reason why people come downtown. So placement of food trucks would be paramount in my mind. If we're going to add food trucks, where do they go? How many are there, et cetera, which I know are some of the questions, bullet points that were pre-published. I also learned a little bit about, I think we all did, about food trucks on 6th Street when Lucha's burned down and we had the Lucha's food truck operate on 6th Street. I think we have to be very careful about putting anything on 6th Street. You know, at first I was in favor, and then at the end I was hoping the food truck would move somewhere else off of 6th Street because it just was it became an eyesore. They had a big sign on it saying closed, and that was the first thing you saw when you pulled into Georgetown. And, you know, I think, you know, and plus, you know, with all the discussions we've had with the Board of Selectmen and with other members of the community about 6th Street, the photographability of it, what's appropriate, what's not, should we have string lights, should we not have string lights, how do we light up the sidewalks and everything? I think food trucks would be in the realm of, you know, that really doesn't add to the character of the town. So where would you put those food trucks? Lastly, and I don't want to steal the whole show, but you know, I think, you know, when decisions are made about the food trucks, where they go and how many there are, et cetera, how do you manage them? I'm very close to many brewery owners down in Denver, and despite the fact that they're located in the metro area, they have and their business model calls on food trucks to come to their breweries. They have a ready-made market in their brewery. They advertise the food trucks to come and feed the people in their brewery, and it's very common for the food trucks not to show up, and they're very unreliable, and that creates very bad will for the brewery. And so how do you manage it? If you do have food trucks, if you do have some prime spots in town that all the food trucks want to go to, and some other locations that may be less desirable, if you have food trucks, do you have a scorecard? You know, does the town actually manage the attendance? Do they manage, you know, showing up? And do they manage and reward good operators versus, you know, not awarding prime spots or whatever to bad operators? So anyway, that's kind of my initial thoughts on the whole subject.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Who would like to go next?
I mean, from promotions, I was going to have Paul or Kevin there, right? I go in order of how everyone shows up on my screen.
Sure.
So that would be Paul next, and then Kevin would be following.
Okay.
I'm going to abstain from comment at this time.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Kevin?
I'm here.
Hi.
Hi. What I think is important and what I tend to focus on in my work is the visitor experience. And so interacting with visitors and hearing their disappointment in choice, or finding that places are closed when they say their hours will be open, or they're shutting early or not opening at all. I just hear lots of stories of people going to Idaho Springs. And so we're losing a lot of support, and I think doing harm to our reputation as a town that will take us years to bounce back from. So I think that if the need is immediate, we need to act quickly, and maybe a time limit will be put on this. Maybe, you know, we review it annually, but the feedback I get from visitors is that they're disappointed and frustrated. And I think that damages all businesses.
Thank you.
So Lynette, that would be BPC.
Well,
But
I'd like to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah,
from
I just
Craig.
want,
Sure. If he's available. I guess maybe while we're waiting for Craig, I did have a restaurant owner ask me if there was something that could be done amongst the restaurants to coordinate better on, so that we didn't have quite so many closed on, and that's the person, Diane.
I think I'm unmuted.
So you're here, Craig?
If you can hear me, I am.
Yes, I can. Let me just finish the thought, because it was Diane from Mountain Mamas that asked me if there could be more coordination, because I mean, I personally, sometimes Mondays are rough days and I just want to find some takeout someplace quick. And we have several restaurants that are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, and which that includes Mountain Mamas. And so then what they have experienced is when they reopen on Wednesday, they're hearing the same thing that Kevin just mentioned, that places close a little earlier than they have hours posted, and they're getting slammed with business that they're having trouble keeping up with. And sometimes it's the fact of you have your menu, and people who are on vacation are quite often indecisive. They just don't know what they want. And particularly if you have a large group, you're going to have a little bit of trouble satisfying everybody's desires at one place sometimes. So she just wondered if there was some way to coordinate the closure days, so that we didn't have quite so many on the same days. So, yes, Amanda.
just while we're on that subject, I think there's a lot of reasons that, in my experience, restaurants are choosing individual days to take off. We did Wednesdays way ahead of the curve, even back before all of this occurred, because it was, in our experience, a really, really down revenue day. And we also suffer from the crush on Mondays and Tuesdays, because we're the only restaurant besides Cabin Creek. Mountain, I'm sorry, Diane. I kind of feel like I kind of know everyone's hours, but yes, it's like Jenga. We're currently closed Wednesday, Thursday. Those are our off days, and that solely is based on staffing. I would love to coordinate that, Diane, and I know we've talked about this on the side. I don't know how to, and I don't know. I think that's more of an encouragement piece, because I think that there's a lot of operators that they're kind of like on their own level, and they're like, I just got to do what I got to do to survive. And they're not really, taking those bigger pictures into consideration. And it's hard. I was putting up a note on the door at Cooper's for 6-8 weeks. I did it. And I actually stopped doing it because we had complaints that half the people on the note. But it said, if you can't eat with us today, please visit these other Georgetown eateries. And I had a list of everybody, and we don't put it up anymore. Yeah. So I think it is a bigger issue, but I know for this particular discussion, focusing on the food truck aspect is huge.
Right. And I guess I see the food truck aspect as maybe filling a gap that it offers another choice, or 2 or 3 or 5, whatever, however, it works out that it satisfies everybody's wants, that it might cover those days when you've got multiple restaurants that use that day for their close date. 100%. And a lot of it has to do with staff. My staff wants to be off 2 days in a row, and I totally get that, because staggering it, you don't feel like you really get a weekend, and that's important. Anyway, Craig.
Hi. Okay, you can still hear me, I take it.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm speaking specifically for myself, because I haven't had a conversation with the rest of our ownership at Cabin Creek, but I trust that a lot of what I say will be supported by them, if not all of it. I think, I mean, the visitor experience component that Kevin.
You're breaking
Sorry,
up.
I'd ordered dinner at Cooper's while I could. I concur with Kevin's sentiments. I think the visitors are not having a great experience as a result of our collective inability to feed them. At Cabin Creek, we're open 7 days a week. We've struggled with staffing, so we've had a number of evenings where we've had to close down early, close our kitchen early, which is frustrating for folks. We seem to be on the upswing in terms of getting our back of house in order, but we don't really see it getting significantly better for several months. So I think that allowing food trucks in town in a thoughtful, well-managed way will benefit everybody. Most importantly, the visitors, because they need to be able to consume calories while they're here. Everybody's kind of a lot of people plan their whole trip around what their meals are going to be. I know that's how my family rolls when we travel. So I support the notion. I do think it's going to take some thoughtful management. I'm hoping that BPC can be the mechanism for that, because I think they're the most in touch with what the business community is experiencing at a given time. Whatever the board decides to do, I would encourage you to build some flexibility into the ordinance so that it's not a 4 to 6 week project to make adjustments. Perhaps it could be built in such a way that if there's a structural issue in terms of, say, the quantity of food trucks or specific locations, maybe that could be updated via resolution, which is a much more expedient mechanism for accomplishing some of those minor things, as opposed to having to go back and actually amend the town code through an ordinance process. But overall, we support food trucks in Georgetown. I agree, we don't want to create a carnival atmosphere, but at the same time, we've got a collective inability right now to serve all of the visitors to Georgetown, and it's hurting us. So until we can get our brick and mortar establishments up and running, and some of the newer ones that are coming online up and running, get everybody staffed up, we should be seriously considering this. So thanks for your time tonight, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Deanne.
We're talking almost exclusively about food trucks. I like the idea about the carts and stands for downtown, because that could, if done right, look quaint. It would fit in, as opposed to the big boxy trucks that look like RVs, blocking everything and stuff. Did the Business Promotions Commission look into anything about, carts, food carts, and small stands that can be put up and down in an hour,
When this conversation started with BPC, we left it very open-ended with the intent that this platform was going to be the best problem-solving and solutions-based mechanism for us to come to good conclusions on the ordinance. I don't think we've ever intentionally excluded any type of food vendor. I mean, during Christmas market, we have someone that sells streusel and peanuts, and the school sells brats. So I mean, it is correct that we do need to consider mobile food vendors in a bigger picture for the sake of the ordinance, but there isn't an exclusionary thing from BPC standpoint.
Okay, thanks. I guess I kind of focus more on the food truck, because as you say, Deanne, it's probably easier to position and locate a stand or a cart, particularly in downtown, than it is to figure out where you're going to put a truck. That creates a little bit more of a challenge, because it blocks views. As Steve Skalsky said, when you when you looked down 6th Street last year, and you looked from the barrier where the street was closed, you saw the food truck, but a lot of times it did have a closed sign on it. And that's not particularly inviting. And it does block the, if you put it in front of the library, I happen to think our library is beautiful. It's hard to think of a place that you could, on 6th Street that you could park one that isn't blocking a beautiful building. So, yeah. Yes, Dan.
Last year, when the library wasn't open for people to come in, they were offering, tell us what you want and we'll bring a basket of it out. And the food truck was actually in their way. So I have a problem with food trucks on 6th Street altogether.
Well, I don't, they made the pickup point over there right on Rose Street. So I don't really think it blocked. Okay. Well,
I made a grassroots survey and talked with a lot of the restaurants downtown, and I talked with the library and a couple other places, and the library specifically mentioned that it was in their way.
okay. All right. Very good. Any other thoughts, ideas? I know Rob looked into, he was trying to find us a few more food trucks last year because we did have space on 6th Street to park them. And Rob?
Before I go into that, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
How about just no more than 3 in town or at the lake? That's a total of 6. No competing foods, and a scorecard managed by the town hall. Either be good or be gone.
Lynette, Kevin's got a hand up and has for some time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Before we entertain the thought of putting food carts on our already congested sidewalks, I want to point out that we have booths in Strauss Park that are underutilized.
That's what
And
I was
to
thinking.
probably fill those first.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, Deanne.
Is there a way that we could manage where the trucks are in such a place like going up Taos, headed south so that you're headed towards the Snetzer building in the school? There are a couple businesses on that piece of Taos that there's a lot of turnover and they don't get enough foot traffic is what it comes down to. Is there some way we could manipulate any sort of mobile food situation to be up in that area so that it would intentionally pull foot traffic to those businesses?
That was one of the street sections that I thought of too, because that might draw people. I mean, the Hotel de Paris draws people down the street, but not.
Nobody goes to, south on Taos.
Yes, I know. Wasn't finished.
Sorry.
And that, but then you want them to also come around the corner and notice that there are retail stores up Taos Street, up in the sense of it's going uphill slightly to the south. That was one of the street sections that I had thought of also, possibilities. You don't want it to block the parking access into that parking lot next to the Hotel de Paris, but that was one of the thoughts I had. Anybody else? Yes, Mary.
I think we're getting into the weeds a little bit here, and I know that's kind of the reason for the work session, but in one of the articles that was included, they discussed and suggested placement within or not within 100 feet of another restaurant. I don't know as if we can dictate anyone's menu, and if that's a fair thing for us to do. Can we tell Steve at his restaurant that he can't serve the same items that Cooper's can serve at their restaurant. You know, I realize we try to, you know, give as much diversity to what's offered here, but that is not the purpose of what our ordinance would be undertaking here. You know, I think there's a lot of considerations as far as placement. If you didn't notice in the comments, Paul Boat had suggested, again, to kind of piggyback on what Deanne was suggesting on the north-south streets on Taos. You know, the Heritage Center was an opportunity for a Christmas market a few years ago to have a food truck down there and try to disperse the crowd, perhaps off 6th Street. You know, they're also visiting Georgetown, you know, for the quaint little walks that they can do around town in the summertime. You know, so I don't think we can ignore that facet. If I would be certainly open to expanding our food truck ordinance and not having it as prohibitive as it is, that it's just special events and it's just 2 days. But, you know, we're getting into far too deep into trying to tell the businesses, our own businesses, you know, what they can, we just can't tell them how to operate their businesses or what days they can operate. So I think we're just spinning.
Well, and I see your point, Mary, but I also see part of the discussion probably needs to be somewhat into the logistics, because if you don't have spaces identified for these places to, you know, operate, then it doesn't do any good to expand the ordinance to say, well, we can have more food trucks, but I don't know where you're going to put them. And it to me, it seems a little bit important to figure out if we're going to increase the number of food trucks or the days that they can be in town and operating, figure out where they're going to be located. So, yes, Steve.
Yeah, I guess I just want to make sure there's a clarification. I'm assuming, I think it was Rob, when he said different menus, he was referring to food trucks. Be selective about the food trucks. Don't get 3 hot dog trucks and put them all next to each other. You got 3 hot dog trucks versus the restaurants. No, you can't control what I do or what Amanda does or what Craig does from a menu perspective. So I just want to make sure that's what we're talking about, because I'm assuming we're not entertaining having restaurants not carry certain foods. So.
No, what I was saying was, nothing. I didn't want somebody who is mobile, who had a mobile menu, coming in and competing with one of your restaurants. In other words, if we had a barbecue joint, I didn't want to get a whole bunch of food trucks that were barbecue.
Yeah, and then the other comment I'd make, and I think there's an ongoing debate between, what do brick and mortar restaurants deserve and have, and what should they be protecting versus a operator that just may pop in and pop out, irrespective of the need to feed mouths. I think the consideration when you're talking about 100 feet from another restaurant or proper placement, it is real that for people that have space in downtown and are investing in their space, they're doing it in a way because they recognize the opportunity, and presumably they're trying to right size the business so that they can take advantage of their location. And so, I don't use as an excuse no food trucks because, for example, I'm making the investment. However, I do want to make sure I maintain whatever advantage I have in my location when I open, because of the significant investment that I have made and the forethought I gave to it. So, it is important. That's why I say a big discussion has to be, where do they go? I mean, that's if you can get them in town, which I'm a little skeptical of. If you can even get them up the hill, where will you put them?
Yeah.
That was one of the concerns when Lynette, you asked me what my experience was when I asked a couple of these food trucks if they wouldn't mind coming up to Georgetown. They said they would. They were worried that they wouldn't make it up the hill. Some of those food trucks just aren't. They're good for getting around Denver, but as far as making it up, the kind of grade that we've got, it scared them a little bit or made them hesitant.
Okay.
We had a guy out of Evergreen who was going to come up last year for Christmas market and set up a food truck. And his concern along those lines, Rob, was once he got up the hill, he knew he wasn't going to be in operations for the 5 weekdays in between markets. And so where could he leave his truck? And so I think if we expand this ordinance, and it was one of the questions I think that Jen Jordan had put together for us to look at, was where could they park or relocate their vehicle if they're not in operation, but they are going to be hitting it, let's say, on another weekend, or if they are going to be closed for a couple of days, then let's not have that eyesore that was referred to, which I agree.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're kind of breaking up, Rob. So, Amanda, you had.
I'm good.
Hand up.
We're.
Oh, okay. Okay. Am I missing any other hands up?
Rob's screen's frozen.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that we'd have the opportunity in business promotions, especially because we would certainly be acting on some type of recommendation from them. If we could gather some information, not necessarily at this meeting, but an answer or everyone's opinion, an answer to some of those questions that was put together in our packet and get some feedback there. And then also if, I think it just came up at last week's BPC meeting, but if the town has had the opportunity, I know Deanne, you made reference to it, but if we have an official response from the different food providers that we have in town as to what their take is on it, other than those that have been able to show up today from BPC and Diane and Craig, so that we have all of that and get some consensus going there and then kind of narrow it down.
Yes, Rich.
Do we have people that are trying to apply and that want to bring their food trucks up here? Or is it something we're going to have to market and advertise? Because if we have a need, but if no one wants to drive their coach up the hill, then it's really, we're just spinning our wheels.
The only one that I am aware of is Lucha. Kent? Just the one? Yeah, they're not clamoring to come up here. We're trying to figure out if we can draw them up, what's the magic combination? So
we haven't been food truck friendly though either. I mean, we've just changed the ordinance from 3 days to 4 days, just a year or so ago. So I think if they knew that we were more open to, providing a business opportunity for them, maybe if we build it, they will come.
It's possible.
Or try the little engine that could up the hill.
Sure. Amanda?
I unmuted like 6 times and then I kept muting. I think the one thing I would counter though is that this is the first time since I've been involved with BPC, and I've been on since 2016, that we have had someone as strong as Jen in the role. And for her to be successful in the long game, which is the event planning and the marketing and the tourism, there is a component that exists with food trucks. And that does not mean that, she runs out and finds 10 food trucks to put all the brick and mortar out of business. Of course not. But it gives her the option to, if there's events that were being planned and booked, to have somebody else come in to change the scenery. And in those scheme of restaurants, it is kind of it's a really tough industry. It's super cutthroat. It's very difficult. there's places, that you go and you see, and I'm going to use Idaho Springs as an example. Their Minor Street is highly concentrated with restaurants. And I was there last night and it was, vibrant and it was happy and but it was controlled. And that's the nice thing. It was not kind of that overwhelming crush of guests that you were seeing in a lot of restaurants. Like I didn't see anybody on extraordinary waits. I'm sure Bojo's was because they always are. But when you have these options for people, it changes the whole scene. And then you kind of, you can transition that into special events and the conviviality that food creates. Food brings memories and food brings happy things that people love. And that's why having food options for our tourists is so imperative. And of course, our comrades in the brick and mortar are the priority. And I mean, Ryan and I adore and respect every single restaurant in the community, but we recognize that none of us are capable of fulfilling the need. And if we can find that like tiny niche and give Jen the tools to be good at her job, this is one of those facets. Food is amazing and how it brings people together in the best.
There's also the concept that, a food truck might come up here, fall in love with the town and look for a space so that they can make the bridge from a food truck to brick and mortar.
If they'd like to buy a restaurant, there's one on the roundabout that I would probably be willing to let go. No, I'm joking. I would never do that, but just along.
Yeah, I've seen it done down in Denver and it could be a possibility up here. It's just
absolutely
up here. That's all.
And that's good for everybody. It's brick and mortar is good for, that's good for our residents. It's good for our community. I mean, but we're assuming food trucks are just going to show up here in droves is a big stretch, but let's figure out where to put them logistically instead of getting in the weeds on that, the big picture and giving Jen the tools to do, if she's going to.
The other thing too is that we have the whole town. Just to relegate them to 6th Street, that would be ridiculous.
Absolutely.
We've got, I mean, you could do it even on Rose Street or at City Park, not on Rose Street, but I mean, those side streets on either side of City Park. I mean, there's often, the pizza park that could house one. You could actually have them all over town. But if you're worried about the number, you could always do just a total of 6 and put 3 downtown and then 3 dispersed throughout the rest of town.
So I saw a couple of hands up. I think Deanne had her hand up and Paul did. So Deanne?
I could support
No.
I could support the small carts and things downtown in the historic district, but I can't support food trucks down there because it just looked so horrible last year, even though we were trying to help Lucia's out because of the fire. The only way I could support food trucks in the downtown area is if they're off on the sides, and that would help encourage business to come, again, south on Taos, down to what had been the tea room, and now it's where Ophelia's is camping out until their building's back. I just can't see. I'm real afraid of hurting our really nice restaurants that we have. I don't want them to face the competition of a cheaper, and I'm going to call them hit and run kind of business, because they pull in, they sell like crazy for the day, and then they're gone. And our guys have all sorts of staffing that's needed that the trucks don't need. They have overhead for the buildings. And some of the places are really nice, and we want to encourage that in the historic district much more than we want to, and again, I could support carts and things, and like Kevin was saying, in the booths, because they're just sitting there. That would be a good use of them, but not if it even pulls a significant percentage of the business from our brick and mortars. Our brick and mortars are more important.
Okay. Paul, did you have your hand up?
I did earlier. Mary addressed exactly what I was going to say, and then Amanda did. But I'll just add, I don't have a restaurant in this town, but I was in the restaurant industry for a couple of decades. And restaurant, Amanda pointed it out already anyway. Restaurant districts do better than restaurants on their own as a rule. And the vibrancy and the feeling of that can be added to with a food truck. However, because I don't have a restaurant in this town, I don't want to get into an argument with the people who've made that investment and have staffs to pay and are living the real world of it. And so, but the two statements I don't know that they're going to come up here, but honestly, we've not been food truck friendly, which Mary already pointed out. Anyway, but they got it. That's why I took it down. So thank you very much.
Okay, sure. Yes, Steve.
So out of Europe, a worse stand, in America, we would call it a hot dog stand, but, all over Europe, all over, the Alps, you have these carts, and this is really going to Deanne's point. It takes an entrepreneur, it takes a cart to do it, but those would be phenomenal in the somewhere in the downtown area versus a big old food truck. And but again, where are the food entrepreneurs, right? And maybe it's part of Jen's task once we decide where things can go in town and what latitude she has to go find these places. Perhaps she can find people that would be the right fit for a stand, and those are the kind of stands that you can put in Strauss Park as well. So anyway, my two creative cents, and that's it.
All right, thanks. Jen, yes.
Yeah, just speaking to that, I just wanted to say that once we do get this all in place, all of that legwork, finding the carts, the trucks, however we decide to do it, once we know where it's going, sort of a chicken and egg thing. We don't know whether or not they're willing to come up, but we need to have something. I need to have something to present them with and know kind of what that's going to look like before I can actually get them. But as far as managing the food trucks, whether they're reputable, all of that would be tasked to me, as long as that's okay with everybody. But that is, I believe, the role that I would have. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Sure.
Well, Jen, can I point you in the right direction?
You can.
Because the Edgewater Marketplace is newly built down on, I think it's 26th and Sheridan, basically. And what it is it's a bunch of food trucks, and they're all parked out in the back that have kiosks inside a great room that has an actual operating bar in the corner. And if, there's got to be 25 restaurants in there. I don't know if all of them have a food truck, but I'd be more than willing to canvass that area for you if you want. But if you've got more time than me, because I have a full-time job,
we can work that out, I'm sure. But yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if I get in front of somebody with a food truck, I want your phone number so I can give you a call.
Right.
I was just going to say that if I do. Unfortunately, I'm a grease trap inspector, and that is one of my spots. So it is well managed. It's got a lot of variety, and I just thought it would be kind of an epicenter for you to start. And maybe they know 2 other food trucks, and those guys know 2 other food trucks, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with food trucks quite a bit in the past, just so I do have, not necessarily here, but I speak some food truck language, so I think it will be good, and I'll definitely start there. Thanks, Rob.
So thank you. I just wanted to insert something here just for a moment. So what we have on the books right now already allows our events coordinator to get food trucks to come for events. We just need to figure out where to locate them, and they will be limited to that 4 days, which I'm not really aware of any events that we've got that last longer than that. So we do have the capability of getting food trucks up into town. The other thing is, I don't think that our regulations or our ordinances would prohibit having the food stands and carts in Strauss Park because they're not food trucks. It's, I guess that's a question for Jerry. It's kind of interpretive. But if we wanted to say you had Saturday, you had mountain jams going in the afternoon, and you wanted to expand the food choices, I would think that that's something that we could allow in Strauss Park in the booths, or just, you know, forward from the booths to expand the weekend choices. Jerry, do you have thoughts on interpretation on that ordinance?
Well, you know, it might have to adjust it a little too, because right now there's a day limitation,
Yeah.
and what you would, if what you're really thinking about is saying within Strauss Park, that's kind of that's open sort of continuously within the sort of permitting authority, say, of the town administrator, for people to come and go and be able to just have activity there, food truck activity on the park, or food cart or stand activity on the cart. I'd want to articulate that in an ordinance that sort of creates almost a restaurant district in a sense there. If that's what you're wanting, that's a little bit of a square peg to push through the current ordinances round hole, but we could figure out how to adjust that just for Strauss Park.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Deanne, yes.
Okay, when I was going around trying to figure this out, there were things that weren't covered in the packet that I want. So anyway, I called the fire chief, and he sent me a whole bunch of nice things in an email that got really in depth in it. One of which, there was a food truck in Philadelphia that the gas tank exploded, and it killed some people and took out a whole bunch of the storefronts around it and stuff. And that's one of the reasons I don't think we should have anything downtown on 6th itself, because that's the genuinely historic buildings. The percentages of there being an accident like that are really low, but we can't afford to count on it. So again, I want to support doing it in Strauss Park. That's a good idea, but not food trucks downtown.
Okay. All right. We've got about 8 more minutes. Any other thoughts on the subject?
I have a
I'll
question.
say something, Deanne, or Lynette.
Yes, Randy.
I think I'm in agreement with what everybody's talking about tonight. And I think it's an idea whose time has come that we have to have some more food options. And I believe most of the business owners downtown think so too, especially even the restaurants that can't breathe, not counting their staffing shortages. Just a couple of things. So I'm not in disagreement with anything said. I am concerned about where they might go. Parking them on the street is our biggest problem. I definitely agree with most that thought 6th Street was a poor place to have them. Up on Taos, we have to keep in mind that a food truck can't park on a hill. So on the hill portion of Taos wouldn't work. They'd have to be private property. Is my visiting food trucks all over the place, because I'm a fan of food trucks. They're usually on somebody's private property or on city property designated for that purpose, which we don't have the luxury of having here. We could create something, maybe if the town and Hotel de Paris and everything, not Hotel de Paris parking lot, but the Dame's property up above it is level and could be a consideration and satisfy giving people an option to walk a little up and down the streets. Beyond that, we really should consider putting them on private property. And also maybe when you're making all the decisions, trying to come up with, they have to be presentable. Some of the food trucks just look like hell. You know, for a corner of Federal and 19th Street, it's not a problem, but up here, it doesn't fit. So just a couple of opinions there. We have to keep in mind, we can't put them on the other side of Tao Street where parking isn't allowed. We can only allow parking on one side of all of the streets in that area.
Right.
So that's about what I would have to offer. I hope something can get decided, and hopefully if that happens, hopefully somebody takes advantage of it.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Anybody else? Additional thoughts? Yes, Rich.
What do we need to change for Jen and Rob to go out and see if it's even a viable option? Is there something we need to change tonight?
Well, there's nothing we can change tonight. This is a work session.
Right.
Can't take action.
I understand, but I mean,
but
so that way we have a next step.
Sure. What would we need to change? Guess it depends on what the majority desire here. So are we wanting to expand this kind of thing beyond just the 4 days of a special event? If not, we have an ordinance already there that allows it for special events. Jerry's going to take a look and see if there's anything that needs to be tweaked to allow the booths to be used on a more regular basis in Strauss Park, for instance, for carts or stands. Are we really wanting more than special events? I mean, if we only have one food truck that is seriously lined up and wanting to get opened up for business, that's for a longer period of time than just events. Are we wanting to change the ordinance to allow that? Yes, Amanda.
So with the 4 minutes left, would the most effective use of the session be determining the two pieces of the ordinance? A, the time piece, which is the most crucial, and then B, the loose determination over where they go, which might need a follow-up work session. I think that the where they go is probably a follow-up work session personally, but I don't want to speak for the rest of BPC.
Mm-hmm.
So BPC with the members here, we're able to kind of give a loose recommendation right now on the time consideration. Would that be an effective use of this work session?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay. So I will, and I'm sorry to clarify, Lynette, is the goal that we want any time limit before I pull the members of BPC, or do we want to, I mean, do we want a food truck here for a month or a week? Are we kind of not ready to make bigger recommendations?
That I don't know. I mean,
Well, if you got it here for more than a week, that stymies the whole variety thing. Wouldn't you want to have that guy out and the next one in? And if if they performed well according to that scorecard, then they're invited back. But I mean, if they're sloppy, they don't show up, or when they show up, it's
Don't take their trash or any of that.
yeah, be gone. You're probably gone like that day.
I mean, I'm pulling this out of the air, but is it 7 days? Like, what is the number? And I would defer.
Right now, it's only 4.
Exactly. So, Steve's hands up.
And so is John Jennings.
John.
I'll shut up.
John, we haven't heard from you yet.
I'm really liking all the discussion. I kind of feel like if you took the time limit off and had the town administrator keep track of this and get rid of the dead meat, that, or Jen, helping, that might take care of, a lot of the hesitation on the food trucks to come up. It would also manage it, I think, really well. So that would be my recommendation.
To just eliminate the time limit, so it could be any time of the year. Is that what
And
you
have it managed by one person, the town administrator, and just quit committeeing everything and let some, just let's see what happens, but get it moving.
Okay. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, so I think consideration needs to be given for the season, for the time of year. The idea is to feed hungry mouths and not have people walk away. But for 4 winters in a row, it gets very lonely, very dark. And, if someone wants to buy a hot dog, I really want to sell them a hot dog in the brewery versus having the truck sell them a hot dog. In the meantime, during high season, it's obviously different. So you may want to give serious consideration
The other
to
meeting.
the season.
It is the same link, okay.
All right. Mary Sims, you're not muted. Just so you know. Okay, so are we tasking the promotions commission to go back and get a clearer consensus of what time limits would be appropriate if we want to set them, and what numbers we want to set if that's also appropriate? And then we would have further, because if we can come to a decision on, allowing food trucks at other times, then we can work out. I don't think the ordinance has to list where we put them. I think the ordinance just needs to address number and for what periods of time. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right. As structured right now, other than where and how long, the rest of it in terms of conditions is within the authority of the town administrator to issue, and that structure is already there for you.
Right.
So really, if you address where and how long, that's all you need to do in the ordinance. Then you're left with kind of guidelines to the administrator that don't have to be ordinance language, but guidelines to help the administrator as applications come in and as you get experience with food trucks.
Okay. All right.
We will schedule probably a special meeting, maybe BPC, give me a thumbs up or a nod, or next agenda, is it too long if we go to our next agenda, Lynette, or what would you prefer?
I don't.
Okay.
Yes, maybe, for the summer is fast swooshing past, and so I don't know. And if we're changing ordinance, it also needs 2 hearings, a first reading and a second. So keep that in mind as well.
Okay. I will email business promotions tonight and try to see if we could schedule a special meeting. And then we will update the commission, or excuse me, the selectmen, after we have that time scheduled, and we will make those determinations that need to be made for the ordinance to be rewritten. But it was a really good discussion. I'm glad, and thank you to the BPC members, and thank you, Board of Selectmen, for having us tonight. We really appreciate your support of us and what we do, and you guys are amazing. So thanks for having us.
Okay. And thank you very much for all your hard work and everything that you do, because we couldn't do this on our own. So thank you. Thanks for everybody's input. It was really a good discussion. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much. I think we will adjourn. Yep, we've gone over a little bit, so thank you. We'll close the work session and we will open our regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, we don't have to leave.
You don't have to leave.
Okay.
We'll just
You have to
shift.
stand.
Yep.
Wait,
Although
hold on. I gotta take that hat off and put on another one. Hold on.
All right.
Although you should have, you should ask Jennifer to call roll, or you should,
I will.
oh, okay, all right.
I will. I
Sorry.
was gonna start with my, regular agenda.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry.
it's all right. No worries. So I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Georgetown Board of Selectmen. It is July 13th, 2021, and it is 6:04 PM. And let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I think we have a flag and some screen, yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call. I am Lynette Kelsey, Police Judge. Rob Connell.
Here.
Ian Powell.
Here.
John Jennings.
Here.
Paul Hingen. I saw him here.
He's here.
When he comes back, we'll. Rich Barrows.
Here.
Okay.
Mary Smith is here too.
Oh, did I not call Mary Smith? I thought I did. Sorry. Yes, Mary Smith. Agenda approval. Does anybody have anything they want to add to our agenda?
Yes. I
Yes,
have to leave. I have to leave at 7.
Well,
That's not an agenda item. I realize that, but
okay,
I'll-
just an announcement.
I can
Okay,
make a motion to approve the agenda as well.
Wait,
hang on.
hold that thought, Rob. I had asked Kent if he would be or would have the opportunity to present us with an updated staff report on road and bridge maintenance and schedule. I don't know if he's prepared to do that. So I don't know if we should add that to the agenda yet, or.
Okay, he's probably on the stairs going
I
back
don't
to
have
his
anything
office.
specific, Mary, so, but
Okay. So I'm just gonna throw
But
out
I can
something
certainly
out on
talk
road
about
and
it
bridge
in
maintenance
general, yes.
under the staff report, just some questions then. If we could just add that to the agenda.
Okay, you want like projects or
No, kind of
road and
regular
bridge?
maintenance.
Okay,
Just like to chat about that.
road. And staff report. Okay,
Now you're up.
anything else? Anything else to add to the agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as
I
amended.
will
then.
I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Audience business. Members of the audience have 5 minutes to present any matter of interest not already on the agenda. Do we have anyone for audience business?
Lynette, we don't have anybody that I know of.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. And moving on to the payables. We have the payables from June 18th through July 8th, 2021 before us. Any questions for Mary Sims? Yes,
I just have a
Mary
question.
Smith.
So on the first page under 1045, 690 miscellaneous, we have a payout to our events person, Jen Jordan. And then we have a similar payout that comes up under promotions on the third page for professional services. I'm just curious why we're dividing that between a couple of different accounts, or was that just
Okay. It is split 50-50 between promotions and general fund in admin. And that's how it was set up, because that's where we had money. Promotions did not have funding to cover all of her salary.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the payables? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the payables as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the payables dated 6/18/21 through 7/8/21.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the payables from 6/18 to 7/8 to 2021 as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes from our last meeting, which was on June 22nd, 2021. Any comments or corrections to those minutes? I only had one, and I've told Jen about this already. Under the agenda approval, we did not amend the agenda. We just approved it as presented. So if there aren't any more corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the June 22nd, 2021 meeting as corrected.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda, approve the minutes of our last meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. First item on in our action items on our agenda is, let me see here. Agenda item number 1 is the 2021 street project. I'm gonna let Kent introduce that.
Police Judge Kelsey and members of the board, we had sent out an invitation to bid for a certain number of streets, and on the annual street project, we were able to have a little larger budget this year because we've carried over from the last 2 years, expecting certain funds to be used by the Gateway project, which didn't require as much as we expected. So we ended up with some carryover into this year's budget. We had a number of streets identified, all the way from 22nd Street, which is pretty alligatored on either side of the bridge, including Taos Street, which we did the water main project last year on. 6th Street, which is basically just the ramp, basically from Loop Drive as it comes down to Brownell Street. And then Clear Creek Drive, basically the part that wasn't done when it was refinished earlier, as it comes around between the two parts that were done with it, and then Argentine Street, as far as just north of the roundabout. That is pothole central right now for quite a few areas. It doesn't get down to where the new construction is occurring, But that's included in this. Now we had sent it out through BidNet, and there was, and that is sent to, all kinds of different companies subscribe to that service in the Denver metro area. It was sent to hundreds of companies. There was 50 some that actually took a look at it. We ended up with one company bidding. They provided a bid of $386,731. That also includes some concrete curb and gutter on a couple different areas, basically on Taos Street, to help keep that pavement in better condition. Curb along the sides always helps the pavement itself. And also a little section on one side of Argentine that will help that area as well, as far as the drainage and move it away from where we have the potholes occurring. But that is the one bid. It is a company that actually did the paving during the Gateway project. So we actually had good responsiveness from that company as far as their paving part of it. Now, the bigger problem we had was with the water main contractor, not with the paving contractor and the sidewalk contractor. So they do have experience in Georgetown, and that worked out fairly well. Timing is always, scheduling is difficult, but they did work well with us, what they needed to get done. So the staff recommends awarding the bid. I don't think it'll get any better, especially the way gas is going. Asphalt is always affected by oil prices. So we're not going to get a better bid. Yeah. I can guarantee you that. We can change and, eliminate a part of the project here or there. But as far as whether we're going to do the project at all and send it out for bid again, we're not going to get a better price. In fact, I was kind of surprised it was where it's at because of the uncertainty going forward. So, but staff recommends awarding the bid to Elite Systems Infrastructure. So.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Deanne.
Kent,
Yes.
what about the curb by my house?
Since we do have, obviously, as you can see from the budgeted amount, there can be a separate little project to take care of concrete, or I can ask these guys. I wasn't going to include it as far as the actual project, because then they start seeing little parts here and there, and then they don't want to do that. So, but we can do that one of two ways. I can work with these guys once they have the contract and say, can you add this in? And work that part as far as that little bit. Or just like we did last year, we had 4 curbs and a couple additional areas that we had a small concrete contract. That's the type of contractor that works best for that type of situation you're talking about, Dan, that you showed me in front of your house.
Just a little patch, but it looks junky,
Yeah. I'm just talking about the feasibility of it, trying to get it. So it can work either way. I can work with these guys and see if it's, add that in because it's such a small thing to get accomplished. Or there are other curbs that we need to get done and other, repairs that we need to make that the concrete, it could end up to be another small project to go ahead and get done.
Okay.
So.
And it might be more appropriate to have it be part of that kind of a group of small concrete projects rather than trying to wiggle it into this list.
The other thing that could happen is we do have a concrete contractor working, and they're about to start on the Georgetown Bikeway.
Oh.
So they have about 1,100 feet of concrete to do there. And that's the type of contractor that much more easily can add a small little thing to do.
Okay. I was wondering if you had started I realize it's kind of cart before the horse, but construction schedule, are they ready to jump in and start it, or are we working around any special events that I'm not really aware of, or what?
We have a couple weekend events over the next, we have triple bypass. They're not going to be starting by next week, but
Okay.
we have Guanella Pass Hill Climb, not this weekend, but the following weekend, I believe. And so there's stuff like that obviously the weekends is not, and we'll work it with Elite. When we worked with them before, they were more than willing to work with our schedule as far as that.
Okay.
Now, I have not talked with him as yet regarding when we will fit in his schedule.
Okay.
So I haven't had that conversation yet.
Okay. Okay. I was just curious. Anyone else have questions, concerns, comments? Okay. That's a nice long list. I'm hoping we can get that accomplished. That'd be great. All right. I believe there is a recommended motion in your packet, if anyone would like to make it.
I move to award the bid to RME Limited LLC, doing business as Elite Surface Infrastructure for the 2021 street project, and authorize staff to prepare a standard town and of Georgetown contract and authorize the police judge to sign.
A second.
And moved and seconded to award the bid to RME Limited LLC, DBA Elite Surface Infrastructure. Do we want to insert the amount, or
Yeah.
You could have up to the amount because it'll depend on the actual quantities that ends up being done. So
that's true, and this kind of project has a tendency to change. So are they, I mean, when they gave their bid, is that a firm number, or is it subject to change?
Well, there likely would be some change orders, right, Kent, over time.
yeah,
So it'd be
yeah.
appropriate to add in the motion to deal with it, not in an amount not to exceed. And then whatever that number is. And then you can accomplish those change orders.
Yeah.
So what would the amount not to exceed be, Kent?
$386,731.
Is the maker of the motion okay with that?
Rob, where
That
are
was-
you?
I am.
Second.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded and amended and seconded to include the amount that was in the bid. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Agenda item number 2 are the restrooms at Strauss Park. Kent, do you want to start
Sure.
us off on this one?
Well, Police Judge Kelsey and members of the board, as part of the Strauss Park refresh project, there was definite interest from several downtown businesses regarding bathrooms in Strauss Park. And as part of that, it's been part of the discussion of the design for quite a while. Recently, CDOT announced a Main Street revitalization grant opportunity at just a couple months ago, basically, back in March of 2021. Talked about it briefly here, and whether the town should apply, and we applied, and the CDOT was able to award us a grant for the restrooms and also for the downtown furniture. That was part of the grant. The grant is actually in a purchase order and it expires as of March of next year, 2022. They want it spent within a short time frame. They don't want this dragging out for a long time. Now, we got notified last month that, or at the end of May, there was a possibility, and at the beginning of June, got notified that we were awarded the grant. In the discussion with the restroom manufacturer, they gave us sort of timeline of 90 to 120 days. And so then the discussion with the special projects coordinator with the town, with Cindy Neely, who had completed the grant application, to have it go to the DRC and also the Board of Selectmen so that we could get authorized to actually order the restrooms, if that's what the Board of Selectmen chooses to do. It did go to the DRC, and they did approve just the restroom only in the parking lot portion of Strauss Park. It fits behind the Nisel and Anderson building, although it is separated from the Nisel and Anderson building a few feet. The bathrooms themselves are concrete, but they appear, and that was one of the things that DRC really made emphasis on. You know, it is a very small building. It's just 2 bathrooms with a little chase area for utilities. That it looks a certain way, but it just fits kind of will be behind, if the rest of the plan is approved, behind where the extension of the booths sit. So it'll be off that parking lot where obviously you have handicap access to the restroom.
Getting a lot of breakup. I can't
was that
understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's saying my
Kent,
internet
Deanne
connection
was-
is unstable. So.
Yeah.
Am I okay now? Okay.
Yes.
So there's the location of the restrooms. The DRC reviewed it as far as design. I included a catalog for CXD, and then also it gives you kind of an idea of what they look like, although it's awful smaller. It's smaller than an awful lot of them. And then also the specific cut sheets of the restrooms themselves. It also shows included in your packet the actual purchase order from CDOT, and also the amount of 104,000, which is the ordering from CXT for the restrooms themselves. So that is a little bit less than what our grant is, but we do have to include 10%. There is a little bit of prep work that needs to be done for the restrooms. And it's about 90 to 120 days. If we would order it here in July, 120 days puts us at the beginning of November. You know, and then I was talking with the CXT representative as far as the timing, in order to make sure that it was, you know, November 1st is pretty much a cutoff, so that we can make sure that everything's good to go for when Christmas market comes around, because that's really the goal here. The other reason why to go ahead regarding the ordering of the restrooms is if we need to complete the purchase order by March of 2022, it can't really be delayed till the next construction season. There's a little bit of rough in work to do. I did contact East Slope Excavation, which we use on a number of different plumbing projects, as far as timing for him to get his work done. Becky had provided the rough in for the plumbing to the edge of Strauss Park, extend the plumbing to where the set up the pad area where the restrooms would go. And the other benefit is the actual unloading of the restrooms. There are specific details and requirements for that actually it would be better to have the restrooms going at this point before anything else regarding the Strauss Park project is done, if it's approved. And even if it's not approved, the timing is good to do it at this time as far as the placement of where they have to set up the truck and trailer and the crane to unload the piece onto the site where it would go. So those are the basic details around it, and just stand for questions.
I did have a little bit of confusion on the color choices. In the options list, it's got walls checked as natural honey and the roof as Nuss Brown. But those aren't the ones
DRC
that are
requested different
highlighted.
colors.
DRC requested what is highlighted.
Yes.
Is that what I'm seeing? Gotcha.
Yeah, they made different
Okay.
choices. And so with his estimate, I didn't go back to the contractor
Okay.
but we will definitely have that changed for when if it's approved, the actual order is given to CXD.
So do you know which one's which one's the wall and which one's the roof? Just curious.
The roof is a darker brown.
Okay. So the Java brown would be the roof and the mocha caramel would be the walls. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wall and Java brown roof. Okay, great. That's the only question I had. I think it's a cool system, and I love the idea that, you know, they basically set it in place, hook up the plumbing, and you're good to go. You can start using it. I really like that. And the durability of it as well. So, and the look of it is good too, I think. So, other comments? Yes, Dan.
I have two, one of which is I couldn't figure out which specific building it was. And second, all of these have vents, it seems. And that's sort of a dead end thing right there behind Nisel and Anderson's and behind the booths and everything like that. How is it going to vent there? Because it's sort of trapped or something. And the second thing is, even though I couldn't figure out specifically which one, I don't see a single one there that looks Victorian. They all look like modern garages.
Well, it's the Denali model, and I'm looking through it now, but
What page is that on, please?
I'm trying to find it, Dan. I don't have it. Got too many. It'll look very similar to it has a different outside, but the flush restrooms, the page that has flush restrooms on it.
It says Cortez and Denali. Is that the one?
Yeah, the Denali's on the right.
Okay.
And then it's horizontal lap siding. It doesn't have the stone down on the bottom. It's horizontal lap throughout the whole thing. And it obviously doesn't have the windows at the top, but It'll just be horizontal lap
Right.
from bottom to top.
Has anybody?
And then you asked something regarding
You're breaking up a lot, Ken. You're breaking up still. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to say I'm okay again.
Okay.
I think I'm okay.
That sounded better.
Okay. When you mentioned venting, it does have open airspace, and it's 5 feet away from the Nisel and Anderson building and from any other structure. So it should have adequate spacing for the venting of it.
Are Nisel and Anderson's concerns being taken into account?
They were, as far as the distance from the Nisel and Anderson building, in order to make sure that they could have put in a rear door when and if they want to. And also the drainage from the building and also drainage from their buildings.
I knew they didn't want it there at all.
No, I've heard that from Corlew as well. But as far as the drainage concerns and as far as access concerns, that's been addressed.
Okay. Yes, John.
I agree with your comments, Lynette. I think it's a good project. And as far as the venting goes, there's lots of air moving around there. I think that the Nisel and Anderson roof actually descends down there. So you would be getting a lot of circulation of air coming out of there. I wouldn't worry about that part of it. And I would agree. I think it's a great project. I'd like to go forward with it.
Yes, Mary.
So I'm in favor of the restrooms over there. I know that they're ADA compliant. I'm assuming that we're making them either or whatever the, non-gender identified, right? They're equal opportunity restrooms, but more along the lines of the ADA, because there's 2 restrooms, right?
Yeah.
So along the lines of the ADA, it appears to me on the map that you gave us that there's some type of walkway perhaps that comes from Rose Street behind the existing stalls, the short row of stalls. And then it almost, if I'm interpreting it, almost looked like there was lines for stairs, which is pretty flat over there. So I guess then my question is, we have the restrooms in, will we be able to finish that access prior to, some of our winter events? Do we see that as kind of a fluid project?
I don't think the sidewalk will be done all the way to Rose because the construction will occur for the other, if the project is approved. But the sidewalk in front of the bathrooms, yes. But as far as all the way to Rose Street, I don't think so. Not until the rest of the project, if and when it, is approved, then that'll be next year. Just because you don't want construction traffic running over it and breaking the sidewalk and stuff like that.
So, and because they're kind of tucked back there, signage, or how are we going to alert our?
Yeah, we'll have to have
signage
signage,
to get them to go over there. And I guess then that's just my concern too with that lot being an unpaved lot, as Steve already pointed out earlier in our work session. Just how easy is the access going to be for the public, and what can we do to facilitate that? I realize it's an issue, but more so, how are we going to handle that in a proactive way? So just food for thought on all of our parts, that it's not delayed until next July.
Right. Hey, Mary, I think that's a ramp designation, just an 8-inch or 6-inch, decline from the sidewalk. So if
I'll squint more so I can see. It was pretty little print there. Thanks, Jen.
Well, and having a lot of experience pushing a friend around in a wheelchair, you don't actually, it's nice to have a really smooth surface, but you can function on a very hard pack, surface that, not loose gravel, but crusher fines that are really compacted well. So that could work well until we're ready to do the permanent long-term sidewalk. So.
You
Yes.
ready for a motion?
Well, Rich has a comment, or?
I think it's a great project, and it looks like we should take advantage of it while that money's available, because we can always tweak it as the Strauss project advances. And always the question in my house is, who's required to clean and maintain it when it comes to a bathrooms? Is that our Park and Rec folks, or how does that work?
Well, when this all got started, it was each board member was offering to take a weekend and maintain them.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
Great. I'll take
that's
the week after Halloween.
no, actually, town will either have to contract it or, have staff maintain it, or a combination of the two.
Any other comments or questions? All right. There is probably a motion in your packet.
I see one.
Okay.
I move to authorize the police judge to sign the quote from CXT Incorporated for bathrooms to be installed on the Strauss Park property for the amount of $104,170.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the police judge to sign the quote from CXT Incorporated for the bathrooms to be installed on the Strauss Park property for the amount of $104,170. Any further discussion? Yes, Deanne.
It doesn't look Victorian enough.
I trust in the DRC to have done their due diligence. They know what they're doing.
It's
Well,
not right.
I think they do a good job. I think they know their criteria. So, all right.
Want me to read you some things from book 2 that say it's not right? I've got them looked up already.
I'm comfortable with the DRC. I mean, they're the group that controls our aesthetics, and I'm willing to move forward on this with their recommendation.
Okay. Let's go ahead and call a vote, please. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yay, solidly.
Okay. Thank you. And agenda item number 3 is some part, a hydraulic lift. Oh, this is the hydraulic lift. Let me see.
Sweeper.
No.
No?
The sweeper's actually listed next, but
Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm out of order here. That's right. We got that last. Okay. So we have a sweeper attachment that we're considering purchasing.
yeah, and I moved it on myself and and Scott's not here tonight.
Okay.
The current street sweeper, it does okay for us, but it's really not intended as much for streets as one would expect. It has a hard time picking up larger materials and just doing a job decently on without going multiple times over the same street. He had contacted the road and bridge superintendent, had contacted several companies over the past few months to find a replacement or a rental option for a street sweeper. And found an option that he was willing to put forward. And after talking with myself and other staff regarding it, and it's just an attachment to the skidster. Instead of the bucket on front of the skidster, using this from Power Motive Corporation as an attachment on the front. It allows to pick up quite a bit bigger material and dispose of it, and then you still have to end up putting it away. So it's not as quite as much as useful as a full-blown street sweeper, but a full-blown street sweeper is $150,000. So this option and that he has, and it's actually for the less extensive option of $79.45.11. I had put on the higher option of $97.95.11.
Okay.
Was the recommendation from Road and Bridge Superintendent Schaefer. But I think this can accomplish quite a bit for us, and with the heavy rains the past month or two, allow us to do that job quicker and more efficiently, and get our town looking better more often. So it's not as expensive an option as several others. So this is an attachment, and I'll ask you if you have any questions.
So just to clarify, on the sheet from PMC, they've got two of them listed, and the price, the one that we're actually being.
Oh, wait a second.
recommended-
Yes. I need to correct myself.
Okay.
That's because I haven't looked at it. He had wiped out the price of $10,802.31. That was the less expensive. So it is the $97.95.11. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm getting confused in my own head.
It is.
It has a little bit smaller brush diameter, allows you to get in it in a couple different places. That the larger, and that was the one that his recommendation. So it was the recommendation for the $97.95.11. I just needed to connect that. I apologize for giving you any indication otherwise.
Okay. All right. So any other comments or questions? Do we want to, if there's anybody who would like to make the motion that's in the packet, if we could just add in the amount of $9,795.11, I think that would complete the motion. Would anybody like to make that motion?
I can make that motion. I move to direct staff to purchase the skid steer sweeper attachment by Paladin from PMC in the amount of $9,795.11.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to direct staff to purchase the skid steer sweeper attachment by Paladin from.
Tongue twister.
Peter Piper, picture.
Yes, indeed. In the amount of $9,795.11. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Then we move on to the lift. Okay.
This has been a discussion for several years. Dan, do you have a question before
Yeah, I just wondered where are all these things stored so that they're not out in the weather?
Well, we have a building that's should have been constructed by now, but has had different difficulties get built out at the Road and Bridge property. We already have the building. We've had problems with concrete suppliers and actually a couple different hiccups along the way. So that is something to get accomplished. So
I just hadn't seen anything around and I didn't know where.
yeah,
it's up by the town shops. Are we storing any of this in Old Missouri? They used to.
the skid sticker attachment could very well fit, but that'll be coordination. Old Missouri is not very big.
I realize that.
So
I
yeah,
realize.
you realize more than most, but just for anybody listening, it's a very small building. So it's a matter of also of the stuff that's already currently stored there.
Yeah, in the past, it was more for any parks and rec kind of oriented equipment, maintenance equipment, etc. So mowers and trimmers and so on. So,
Right.
okay, so on to the boom lift.
Boom lift's been discussed for several years. In fact, Jerry was reminding me that my predecessor, Tom, would make it a general, kept trying to get a used boom truck from Excel, never was able to accomplish that. We were in it and we had it in the budget a couple years ago and weren't able to accomplish it for whatever reason. Came across this forklift. Superintendent Schaefer and myself went down and inspected the vehicle, and it operated fine. Did all its different maneuvers. And actually the discount forklift, it doesn't offer a warranty, but they have actually a pretty extensive shop there. It was nice to be able to go down there and see that they could, if there's something that needed to be fixed on the vehicle, it could be brought down to that place and maintained. So that was nice to see because they had 50 to 75 either scissor lifts, forklifts, and boom lifts within their facility. And the price quoted is $27,950 for a JLG E300. And it goes up to 30 feet. Now we would still need to rent a boom lift to put it on the lights on one big tree that we'll have still that's across from Town Hall here or over towards the Public Service Company Museum. But it would be very nice to have a boom lift to take care of the multiple things that we have to do and not depend on a rental and then get charged extra when we end up with our high wind days and we end up with having the rental for an extra week. We end up getting charged additional dollars. We end up spending probably $4,000 to $6,000 a year on different rentals for boom lifts. So the price is a little bit more. I did find a few options on eBay, but then you're taking a chance and you have not inspected the equipment and you're depending on the person who owns the equipment. We went back to Discount Forklift and they said, we're fine. We'll be able to sell this with or without you. And they said that the smaller forklifts do not stay around hardly at all. They hardly have one available to sell. So this is the price. I think it's a decent price. It's not completely out of sight. And the way prices are going for different types of equipment, to me, it's a decent price for it. We could end up one with a little bit cheaper, but then we end up with, we don't know the history, we don't know the maintenance, and it's also not bought from someone fairly local that will be able to take it back and maintain it for us if need be.
So with delivery costs and taxes, the bottom line comes to 31,133.78, correct?
The sales tax will not be on there.
Oh, that's right. So
And
just 600.
and the $600 freight, that will depend whether we have them delivered or not. So it'll just be the 600 freight, which could be added on to that, yes.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Yes, Deanne.
Is there any chance we'd need bigger or heavier duty or another couple feet on the boom? You know, I mean, as long as we're doing it, do we want to go for the next step up, or is this the only one that you guys think is right?
Heavy duty, I don't think, the big thing with this one is articulates. So you can be on the street. That was one concern that Scott had, was so that it could turn in multiple directions and you could have it on the street and still access like the street lights off from where you're at.
How far out do the braces go? The little feet that they extend so it doesn't tip?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have that with me. As far as height, this is the good height to handle everything but the big tree across the way. The 30 feet will allow us to handle the historic Georgetown sign, the installation of the new banners that we're going to have along Argentine Street and Brownell to maintain street lights and also access different roofs of buildings when we have to access those type of things. So.
Yes, Deanne.
Are the feet on the braces, I'm going to say big enough that they aren't going to crunch our stone sidewalks and walkways and things? Because it's probably, most people think of cement now rather than stone.
When I was talking about the articulation of the boom,
Yeah.
we'll be able to park it on the street and not have to park it on the flagstone. So we'll be able to park it on the street itself. So, and it'll be able to reach when we're putting the Christmas garland all the way across the street, it'll reach the building if you're parked on the street. So.
I'm just wondering about, for example, the sort of south face of the tree in Strauss Park. In another year, it's not going to matter. But right now, well, we probably won't do anything with it anyway because it's too dead. But
and it will, what we would do is come in from the south there. That'll have to be figured out as far as how do you actually do it.
I'm just real concerned about there being too concentrated of weight on a, 2-foot circle of the stones and breaking it, crunching it,
With the new tree in Strauss Park, it should be able to handle that, and we'll be able to we'll have to figure that out. I don't know for 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure we can still be on the street and reach that area. So we'll just have to see.
Hey, Kent, I do watch them when they do those, and the equipment they've used previously, both for the tree and the other stuff, they just have a solid enough base. They don't brace themselves with putting the legs out to keep them secure.
Sure.
All right. Any other comments? All right. I think the motion that's in our packet just needs the amount plugged in. So $27,950.
You want me to make that motion?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to purchase the JLG E300 AJP 30-foot electric boom lift man aerial platform from Discount Forklift and authorize staff to sign the appropriate documents in the amount of $27,950. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we had the food truck discussion. Did anybody have any other comments that came to them after our work session that we should be passing along to promotions? Okay. Staff items, COVID update. I don't have any new data. I was not able to tune into the commissioners meeting today. I think we're going to have the county take over that variable message board that we did have because they want to move it around the county. Isn't that correct, Kent?
Yes.
That my understanding? Okay. So any other COVID related items that anybody has? Okay. And Clear Creek County Hazard Mitigation Plan update. Is it other than the wildfire or is it just the wildfire?
He froze.
Kent froze again.
That's 7 o'clock.
Well, there you go.
Looks like we're good.
I think he was just holding really still.
It's a performance art practice.
Yeah, performance. There you go,
Yeah.
Ken. Nicely done.
7 o'clock. It's right at the top. It's at the top of the hour. It's following the bells that ring in town.
All right.
They had asked for one additional goal for the next, for this update. The previous one regarding wildfire had been a vegetation thinning program. And I brought up the spreadsheet that was sent to Clear Creek County. So that's why I'm just staring into the screen here. But the goal that they had in the previous hazard mitigation plan, one of the goals was implement vegetation thinning in a program in and around town of Georgetown to create both defensible space and reduce the overall potential impacts of wildfire to residents, the landmark district and the town. What they were asking for an additional goal, and we've had, there's 6 others. One that we completed, which was adopt a newer IBC and International Building Code. But a couple of the others we just do on a regular basis, floodplain practices and water conservation measures. And replacing the flood wall along Clear Creek and South Clear Creek that's a big project. Public education and outreach about all hazards. So those are the type of goals that the previous update in 2016 had. And then they had asked for one new goal, and what between Randy and myself that we talked about it, and I talked with Lynette somewhat about it as well, is a community wildfire protection implementation plan. From the actual wildfire protection implementation plan that was passed right after this hazard mitigation plan was passed in 2016 or in the same year. But they had a recommended treatment priority number 1 was, and it was much more specific than the goal that I said to you earlier about a vegetation thinning program. So I just ended up copying that goal from that recommended treatment from that community wildfire protection implementation plan and included it in here. And I did get a reply just this afternoon from Scott Fields, who's the consultant that's working with Clear Creek County. And he did receive it, and obviously they haven't. They said it will work. So that was their information that they provided. So it was just a follow-up and probably more specific regarding taking steps to protect this town from community wildfire. And because of the fires that happened last summer in our neighboring communities, obviously that seems to have a higher priority for the residents and officials within our jurisdictions here. So does that provide enough information, Lynette, regarding?
I'm pretty clear on it, but John and I were in on that whole development of that implementation plan. I'm wondering if the rest of the board has ever seen it. And if not, maybe it's time to distribute it or give us a link to where it is on the website, just to refamiliarize ourselves, because it will take a budget commitment to start implementing things from that plan. And even if we spread it over 5 years, we're going to have to find money and matching funds if we can find some grants. So it would be good for a little light reading on the side.
Right.
So particularly since, we're going to have to start thinking budget next month. So, okay. Any questions from the board? Okay. And then Mary had asked for a road and bridge road maintenance update.
I guess I'm going to more ask I was trying to think more, Mary, of more structural for long term, because I viewed it more as a report that could be included in amongst the other reports that are regularly given, not as something for tonight. So I guess I didn't clarify that with you. That's what I should have done. But I view it more as what type of report we could give on a somewhat regular basis. What type of information would you like to see?
Well, as I indicated in my communication with you, but also in some way, perhaps outside of the scope of these board meetings, if there is a place on our website that residents can go to see perhaps what's coming up for scheduled road maintenance on their street or their ward, or however it's done, in the upcoming weeks. We get rain every summer. It's a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah.
And just as we're talking about road repair, Deanne brings up, her curb issue outside of her home. We all have issues like this. And I just think the transparency of what is the plan and how regular it can be. And, just to try to address the frustrations that a lot of that we all have on some of our roads, whether they're paved roads or not paved roads. I've been asked, well, how can I get my street paved? And, I know that isn't we don't wave our magic wand and that happens. But as our town continues to develop and we increase tourism and people walking and, the use of our roads, it's certainly questions that we need to address. So if Road and Bridge can come in on a regular basis, or, you know, to either this meeting, or if you can share some information so that we can pass that on. You know, and then when these specific complaints come up, and which I've received a few, you know, there's a more targeted approach, or rather than,
Yeah,
so.
no, I agree. And one thing with the street project bid that was approved earlier, we have gotten a quote to, we've gotten 1 or 2 different quotes to do some additional work besides that. Just to address your action, you know, and I've heard it too from different people as far as when is my road can have the asphalt millings and then the, you know, the reclamite or the additional oil added that makes it a much more solid road. We had asked for a quotation regarding the additional reclamite for a couple different blocks that are ready to have the additional reclamite put on. Basically, Main Street from 17th, I call it 17th, it's actually Sunburst Circle, to Skyline Drive. And then also Main Street from 10th to 11th. You know, and it stops at 10th because, you know, there's going to be water line and sewer line put in for the Washington Mill part from 9th to 10th later this summer. Once that's done, then we can address the road. And then there's also 3rd Street as it goes from Rose up to Taos, up to the Rutherford parking lot, and maybe just Rose to Taos. That is closer to being ready. There's still a little bit of prep work, obviously, with that to be done. But it had positive reviews from the residents that are along that. But to get a quote to be able to have the reclamite for that, now that we know the street project is a certain price, we still have some within the budget to be able to do a little bit more. As far as the grading of other streets, you know, trying to have either a schedule or what is next on that part and what our goals are for that. We're a man down in the road and bridge, and we haven't been successful yet to have a candidate, so that's holding us back a little bit. But the other quotation that we had, I'm sorry, I skipped a little bit because I don't have this completely straight out in my head right now, but we did receive a quotation to add a sealer, basically a chip and seal or slurry seal, basically on top of a few different blocks in town, including Rose Street, from, you know, going down the main corridor. So, and then a few other blocks, and it's basically streets that are in good condition right now, but you want to keep that surface. And one of the ways you keep that surface from developing cracks is you put a slurry seal on top of it. So we haven't decided fully for that, but that is one idea regarding that. As far as road and bridge maintenance, I'll take a look at a couple different examples, and what I'd like to do is provide you a little more systematic approach or a little systematic report as far as what's actually being done and what's being accomplished with that. So that, and that's part of the reason I asked you the questions at the beginning, Mary, is just trying to, okay, how can we have that in a systematic manner so it is not Punch and Judy, I'm answering this question, but I'm not answering this question, for different people at different locations around town. So,
Well, and I think if there's an expectation or a schedule where we can assure our residents that their unpaved streets are graded X amount of times per summer season and X amount of times throughout the year, so that they, you know, there's some hope, or if they didn't notice it and then it rained that night and by the time they got home, it's all rutted up again. Well, you know, and yes, that happens, but that to me is what I'm being asked, and, you know, in turn, just need to pass that along and with some specifics, I can address with you later. So
The other thing before, I know Rich has raised his hand a couple times, is
Shack in the background.
is also we're identifying several different locations around town as far as where drainage can make a big difference. I've gone back to the engineering plans that were done about 10, 15 years ago when they really reviewed the town and identified different areas of and where are those key spots that we can add a valley gutter, a concrete valley gutter with the right color in it. I've heard that enough that there was a couple valley gutters that did not get color into it. We got to make sure of that. But that would really make a big difference about the maintenance of the roads. And that's part of it too. It isn't just part of, well, just grade it, then it'll be better. Well, yeah, but where are the things that we can put a little bit of money to have a little bit longer term solution and make it easier to maintain? And we do have more than one of those situations that have been identified and we'll try to get taken care of. So.
Thanks.
Yes, Rich.
I'm not sure who maintains the website, but Mary, you had mentioned that having a link that we could send folks to that might provide that information that could be updated on a monthly basis. And I'm not sure if we're looking at budget items, but that might be a budget item where we contract someone if we don't have, Kent doesn't have unlimited staff and time, where maybe they get that information from him and they insert that information and update it on a monthly basis. So that way we have somewhere to send them. Would that make sense to you guys?
We could try to get it started as far as that goes. I mean, Jennifer's the one that mainly maintains the website, the vast majority of it. And, but it's more a matter of getting the content so it can be posted and working with the road and bridge superintendent that's an expectation on what we can have and what that information actually contains.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Anything else tonight? Then I would entertain a motion
I'll
to
make the
adjourn.
motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. It is 7:16 p.m. All in favor say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? Didn't they? You're kidding, right?
Yeah. You can stay.
All right.
I still have a bathroom to clean.
Oh, well.
You're practicing for when you have that first weekend.
Right after Halloween.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and effort. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.